call this November 13th meeting of the York County Planning Commission to order. As there are no changes to the agenda, is there a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a request about the agenda. Could we reserve some time at the end of this meeting for some discussion about fees? No actions to be taken, but a discussion and a request. I'd just like to have some time to do that.
I think we need to make that request for next meeting.
That's correct.
It has
Okay.
to be on the agenda.
Okay. Yeah, we learned that things could be added as long as there was not an action, but okay, so maybe, not sure if this is the time, but for next agenda, some discussion about fees that,
Sure, if you can be more, what about fees, like, so we can prepare for that kind of a discussion?
I'm sorry?
Prepare for the discussion, what kind of questions do you have about fees, or what fees in general, or what fees are
Qu-
you talking about?
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to have a little discussion. I'm not sure if this is the right time, and I'm trying to be careful not to get out of bounds here, but I'd like to talk a little bit more about the fees that individuals are charged for things relating to planning and zoning.
Okay,
And specifically, the thing we had last month where we had someone who had something that was being corrected on behalf of because of an error made by the county.
So
and
I would
how.
recommend that you would send an email to myself as well as Kate, and then we can put that on the agenda for next month.
Okay, that's what I'll do. Thank you. Yep.
So is there a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Looking over the minutes, any changes or adjustments?
A motion to approve the minutes.
A second.
All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Our first item of the evening is a public hearing on the approval of road name changes.
Hello. I'm Gina Aaron, Addressing Supervisor with Public Safety Communications. So due to the cancellation of a proposed development off Daimler Boulevard, the road name will need to be changed. It will be changed to Cannonball Run.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
can you speak up just a
Oh.
little bit? We can't hear you very well.
I moved it. There we go.
Thank you.
So it'll be named Cannonball Run. This was selected by Councilwoman Allison Love due to the history of the cannonballs produced in this area during the Revolutionary War.
Okay. Do we have any discussion? Questions?
Public hearing.
It's public hearing.
Yeah. Is there anyone here to have any input on this?
Or against.
So,
Speak in favor.
I say, so if there's no one in favor or opposed, does the commission have any questions or discussion? Anyone
Make a
would
motion
like
to
to make a motion?
to close the
Close
public
public
hearing.
hearing.
Okay. So you made the motion, Matt?
Yeah, motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
And a second? So all those in favor of closing the public hearing? Anyone opposed? Now moving on to discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I will second. Now, is there any other input or discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay,
Okay,
thank you. Moving on to new business, rezoning 2335.
Good evening, everybody. This first item is case number 2335 for Alan Needham. It's on Old York Road and North Shiloh Road in York. Tax map number is 449000063. The request here is to rezone a 2.18 acre parcel from RMX 20 to RI, which is rural industrial. This is actually our first project coming forward with this new zoning district. The purpose is to establish two businesses, One is a boat and RV storage, and the other is an electrical contractor. The parcel is located at the intersection of North Silo Road and Old York Road. It's halfway between the cities of York and Rock Hill. The area here still has some vacant parcels to the north. There is a community to the south. Also located nearby is Comer, which is a industrial equipment seller and rental car property. There's also a Dollar General to the south and a water treatment facility or a water tower to the west there. To the north of this property is a future development called Haverhill. It's just showing it's being trees now, but there will be a development going in there with about, I think, 30 homes. For the environmental map here, it's very flat, no environmental features. Zoning for the area. This northern part of Shiloh Road is RMX 20. To the south is GC, as well as some RUD. But there is light industrial and industrial development just to the east of that property. The comprehensive plan for the area here, it puts this property in a rural center. Underneath that, the underlying designation is single-family residential. And for that rural center, this is considered an area where it's a small cluster of small-scale civic and/or commercial buildings located at the intersection of two major roads, or major and minor, which is Old York Road, North Shiloh. It's to provide goods and services for the area around it. Underneath that is our single-family residential designation as well. But we probably go by that rural center as a node. For this application here, we're recommending approval. The RI zoning district can be appropriate at a rural center as defined by the land use code. But typically it's separated by some kind of a topography feature or a natural or some kind of a structural boundary for that. So because they don't have this on this piece of property, we're requesting you to add a condition. And that is to construct a 6-foot-high earthen berm with plantings on the top along the parcel's northern boundary, just tax map number 44900000019. And that final design will be approved by the landscape architect during civil construction review process. We don't know exactly how wide that should be right now. We have an idea of how wide that should be, but we want to have that reviewed actually during the process. Any questions for staff?
Go ahead.
Diane, is the 6 foot the minimum height on it, or
That would be.
typically?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
That's the basic height for that type of berm.
Okay.
Okay, I've got a couple on this one. Looking through the use table for RI, I think this is falling under warehousing and storage for motor vehicle, recreational, or boat storage. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so under that, it's a conditional use
Right.
for RI, and then it refers to section 3.23, which says it's got to have a type D buffer yard all the
That's
way
correct.
around it,
Yes.
and that parking has to be established to meet section B2, which is, I think I might have found a typo in here. It refers to section 154.022, but I think it's 154.027 is what it's trying to refer to in parking. So my question is, if both of those are required for the conditional use, should that not also be added to the condition of what is stated here
No,
for
so
what
those
you
are
all are
actually
asking?
required by code no matter what. This condition here, we are adding that to in addition to whatever the code requires. So you don't need to put conditions on there, they're already on there. And so
Okay.
what that was doing, those conditions are to be able to, mainly it's for the buffer as well as for parking. And I believe it does give the option to be able to use gravel parking, and that's what that section refers to, is you can have gravel areas for the storage of those campers and RVs.
Okay, and so the type D buffer yard, help me understand how that's different than the specific condition you all are requesting that we
So
add to
the
this.
type D buffer yard is going to be based upon the size of the lot. This is the 2.1 acres, so you're going to be at, I believe, the midpoint of those buffers. And usually it's 50 foot. You can be reduced by putting in a fence. So given the fact that they have to have the berm, they wouldn't have a berm and a fence. They'll just have the berm in place of the fence. And so areas where they have the berm, they'll have the berm. Areas where they don't, they'll have a fence. And so they can reduce
Okay.
that buffer slightly because of adding that fence to it.
So it's a mix of methods to get to a type D buffer yard equivalent?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And that's why
okay.
we wanted to be able to add some flexibility, have that being done in the civil construction design process as opposed to right now, because once we get out there and see what's the most appropriate place or location for these types of buffers.
Okay. And then the other one is the electrical business. Is that falling under like contract
Contract
services? Is that right?
That's correct.
Did I do my
You
homework
did
well,
your homework
Diane?
very well.
Okay, all right, okay. Thank you. Those were the questions I had.
Great.
Are there any additional questions of staff? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with the staff condition as listed in the report.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Moving on to rezoning 23-42.
Yes, this next case, 23-42 for Ashley Watford, St. Laffer Road in Clover, tax map number is 581-0000-063. The request is to rezone a 17.4 acre parcel from RMX 10 to RUD. And the purpose is to be able to subdivide the property to create 3 new lots. And also, the RUD purpose is to be able to eliminate the requirement to have an open space or an HOA association for that as well. And the reason why we're at this point is because, as you can remember, this has been a much larger parcel that's been subdivided a few times. And so once you get to this place here, they have to be considered a major subdivision, which they still will be. And you'll see it again if this passes. The difference is an RUD does not require them to have that open space nor the HOA. And so given the large lots of 5 acres, and then given the fact this is not really a neighborhood, they've requested to go to RUD for that purpose. As you can see, this property is located at the end of the peninsula. This is the peninsula where the nuclear plant is. Zooming in here, a lot of the lots along the lake have already been developed on very, very large lots, but the interior part of that peninsula is still mostly undeveloped. Zooming into the parcel itself here, as you can see, there are some easements, there's some right-of-ways for the transmission lines through here, but they will be able to create 3 lots from these 17 acres. Now, there is some slope on the property. For zoning for the area, this entire peninsula is actually currently zoned RMX 10. It's been that way forever. The comprehensive land use plan recommends for the area here is rural residential. And as you know, that is the rural character of agricultural homesteads and homes on an acre or more land. They're typically served by well and septic, and they have a very sparse road network around it. This request aligns with the comprehensive plans. We recommend approval. The size of these lots will be very similar to those in the general vicinity. Any questions for staff?
If there are no questions, is there a motion?
Real quick,
Nope.
I'm
Sure.
sorry, just
Jump in there.
processing speed's down a little bit tonight. So this is part of a bigger planned development, right, or not?
Not really. It's
Okay,
This had been, there are a few large lots. I think I can use my cursor. These were all at one time one large lot, and they have been subdivided over time. And so now they've reached to the 7th lot, and now they're considered a major subdivision. And so this one here was part of a much larger tracts of land.
okay. So if this happens, and I think if I saw correctly, this would be 3 roughly 5+ acre size
Exactly.
pieces, right? So what happens to the rest of the development down the road? Will they have to go through something like this again?
So do you mean by that for this individual parcel?
No, I'm saying if this, I'm looking at this and I believe I'm seeing a lot of green space
Right.
compared to a layout that's showing a big planned development was intended for that green space.
Sure.
Okay,
So if in the future, I want to get to a good map where I can see what I'm talking about. So if these other lots come in and they want to subdivide, they would have to do the open space or do this exact same thing, request to go to RUD, if they want to be able to add multiple lots here. If they want to develop this as just one parcel of one house, they'll do nothing. You'll never see it again.
okay.
But
So
anything in the future will probably come, if they choose to go that route.
and that was me trying to read through this and understand the bigger picture. This is all kind of enveloped in a planned development item, or it's,
It's really,
this
no.
major subdivision thing sometimes confuses me, so that's what I'm,
So a major subdivision is when you have seven or more parcels. And so because this was one much larger one, and they've already cut it a few times, they have now become, the next subdivision becomes major. So anything else that happens here that's gonna require a subdivision requires a major subdivision. So like I said, if this goes through, you'll see this in a few months, come back with you with the request for a preliminary plat for these 3 lots as a major subdivision. The difference, there'll be no open space.
okay, so I was getting ahead of myself because this has to happen before the next piece where the major subdivision discussion happens.
Correct.
Okay, that, when I read through this, I'm like, where's the major subdivision?
Yep.
I'm with you now, okay, thank you.
Diane, any restrictions on further division of those lots?
There's not.
In
So I
either
mean, if they
case?
choose to come back in here and make those 5 lots into, you know, those 3
1
into
acre
15
each.
1-acre lots, they could do that. But as they're zoned right now, they're RMX 10, so, you know, there's no water and sewer there, so they could get 10,000 square foot lots if they had water and sewer, as is currently zoned.
But even if they did RUD, they'd still have to come back here because it's major subdivision.
That's correct.
So no matter what,
You'll see this thing potentially more times.
I was just gonna say, the way I think of it is there's no time constraint on when that division happened, right? So
Correct.
that's the thing, it added up over time to 7
Yeah,
divisions.
my confusion was reading in here about major subdivision and whatever, and then I didn't see more talk about major subdivision. So I was like, okay, so what am I missing that wasn't putting the 2 pieces together? But
Understood.
it's time between the 2
Think of it
events of
Kind of
this.
like a clawback. And
Right.
so the way it's set up, it gives the opportunity for us to be able to claw back to how it was before and keep adding those cuts to get to where we are right now.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or discussion? Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
All those, I'm sorry, any discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Sorry, Diane.
It's okay.
Moving on to 2344.
Case number 2344 with the Clover School District. It's on Daimler Road area between Highway 274 and 49. And I'm not going to list the parcels. In your staff report, there's, I think, 22 or 23 parcels. So the request this evening is to be able to amend the Allison Creek PD to remove the statement for a required connection to Liberty Hill, West Liberty Hill Road. And there's a table within the PD portion of this document that specifies the number of curb cuts and connections that are allowed and or required within each pod of the PD. So this PD has 17 separate pods, and each one are listed on this table and tells you how many curb cuts you can have, how many curb cuts you have to have, connections to be made, and everything like that. So the request here is to be able to strike out or to remove the section where it says at least one connection to West Liberty Hill Road. And just to kind of give you all a refresher for those folks who aren't aware of how this is where we are right now. This was part of the Allison Creek DA and PD. As you know, the DA tells the entire document. The PD talks about the actual development conditions that governs that. The DA does expire at some point. The PD lives forever. It's considered a rezoning. So in 2008, 1,400 acres came in for this development agreement in PD, and that was for the future Daimler Trucks headquarters and the supportive uses that go along with that, whether it was homes or commercial uses, office uses for this area here. In 2008, there was a modification in July that we added the Girl Scout property. And in 2010, it was modified at that point to be able to add the use, the professional uses for schools for the future Clover School to Pod 4. So in 2010, we actually allowed that to be able to do the Clover School on that pod. Since then, as you all know, not much has happened out there, but the Westport development is currently under development, and recently you all approved the Aberforth at Allison Creek and the Avonlea at Allison Creek, and those are currently working on their civil construction drawings. And also the Clover High School, Elementary School are currently under review. So this is the development here. We have 274 and 49. This is Daimler Boulevard through here. Here's Pod 4. This is the west part. This will be all homes in the southern part here. As you can see, this is still all undeveloped land. Zooming in here, this is pod number 4. So that will be the school site here, high school and elementary school. And this is Liberty Hill Road. And so the PD was envisioned at the time, and that was to make a connection to go through here to Liberty Hill Road. Request us to be able to remove that condition. The zoning map for the area, as you can see all the area here in blue, that's the PD. The future land use map is a combination of single family, regional employment, neighborhood residential, and also a town center. But we're looking at this pod over here, which is that single family pod. And so as we know, that's primarily for single family homes, exhibit rural and suburban character, and small scale offices in the area as well. So we are recommending approval. The PD itself is still consistent with the comprehensive land use plan, and the amendment here will not alter the general characteristics of the plan development. So everything else is staying the same. We're just taking out that one connection for the school. Any questions for staff?
Yeah, Diane, on our packet, page 82, it shows that one drive going back to West Liberty, West Liberty Hill Road. It's on 82, it's a school site plan. I take it that goes away.
Yes.
Okay.
It'll be modified to some different way. It could be a different, I don't know what they're going to do there. They'll probably use part of it for, I think, coming off of Daimler, and they'll be able to have their parents and teachers coming here and students coming here, buses coming out there, but this will all go away, anything up here.
And as long as they meet the distance requirements from intersections.
Oh, yeah,
along-
that's being met.
Along the front here. Yeah.
On Daimler, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
I've got a couple here real quick. So can you show us again? I think you were pointing, there's going to be 2 schools in this pod?
Yeah, there'll be a high school on this part of the pod, and an
Okay.
elementary school over on this part.
Okay. And no access to either of those facilities from West Liberty?
That's correct. There's some discussion of possibly having some movement there, but it's not a requirement,
Right.
so it might just come on here. It all depends on how the TIA works out, essentially. So we're
And
just
so
trying to figure
we
out how
do
to
have a
place-
TIA coming,
Yes,
right?
sir. Yeah.
Because if there's not some access to West Liberty, I understand why you wanted to rename that to Cannonball Run Road. Okay? With 2 schools going in there, and that's the only way everyone's going to get in and out to that school, I think it could create some pretty significant issues for them in there.
They'll have
Maybe
4
not.
access points coming, or is it 3 or 4? 3 coming in here. One over here that'll come up to the students, and then 2 more over here.
Okay.
So they'll have quite a bit of access points through there.
Yeah,
It's staggered
understand.
timing and everything.
Even with it being, you got divided highway there, right?
Mhm.
On the 4-lane, right?
Median Street part of it, yes.
And are there any plans, do you know if there's any plans for any traffic signals
We're working on that right now.
through that? Okay, so and that's part of the here we go, my little thing, the
Yeah,
TIA
yeah.
again.
There'll be, as part of the TIA, there'll be a roundabout, I don't think I can zoom out here, there'll be a roundabout installed right here, and that's going to be, it's triggered by either, whether it's the school or whether it's this development here, someone's putting in a roundabout at the intersection of 49 and 274, or 49, and then we're working right now for the access point onto 274. It's still under
Yeah,
discussion.
and I trust all that'll happen, is when we get what we get and we look at it and we see, okay, here's an access road where 2 schools are gonna be going away.
Yeah.
I see cars and buses lined up in roads, even if they're 4-lane, how much does that back up? How much does that create additional traffic issues when you only have
Sure.
those certain ways to get there, right?
feel
With
it'll be more
with what we've been
efficient.
able to see.
More efficient to get the traffic onto Daimler and out this way than coming across West Liberty.
Okay, thank you.
I did have a question, Diane. In previous plats, let's call the road that goes, the first entrance that goes around to the fields, a ring road. There was no direct connection from the ring road to either Liberty Hill or the backside. In other words, there wasn't a way to go completely around the property.
Right, from what I
Has
can
that
remember,
changed?
the ring road coming to the back part there, that was for the school, or for the students to go that way.
Yes,
And then, but there was a connection that's coming from West Liberty
that was for buses.
to come this way, and there was a parking area here, and they could get through the parking to kind of come this way. So that was, I don't believe if there was a connection to go all the way across there. And Kelly, you can tell me, I don't think it was, I don't think so, to go that way.
So it doesn't exist?
Does not exist. To go from the ring road all the way
Okay.
around that way, no. The connection was coming up this way.
Because the fields, the stadium was removed, and now it looks like there's, if you go to page 82, that Tom was talking about. Picture here.
No.
And just to let you know, the applicant is here if you have other questions that I'm not able to answer.
Okay.
Okay. What was your question now that I have in front of me?
Could you pull up 82?
I can't
In
pull it
the
up on
packet?
there. No,
Okay.
it's got to be on here and you.
There is a connection from the Ring Road parking lot to Liberty Hill, or to,
But, yeah, that's what I was
Well-
mentioning.
we don't have a current plat is the issue. So
Right.
we don't know what it's going to look like.
Well, with this connection going away, it will be different. So this road will not go through.
There's another question I have. In the proposed text change, we're removing one connection, and we talked about connection versus entrance. And then there's another one that says must connect to adjacent property to the east.
Correct.
What does that mean?
That is the property right here. It's got to connect, and once again, this PD says this parcel right here must connect to this parcel right here. Because this is tax number, it was on there, 55311, I think it is. Yeah, 05. So that's a different developer, different property owner. They will have to connect somehow to that property here, to this parcel right there. So this pod here has to connect. That stays.
That's their pod.
It's all part of Pod 4.
I'm a little confused because that looks like pod 3. Pod 4 does come down. And then there's the block that says existing zoning RUD. Is that the property to the east?
Let me get my pod map.
Does anybody know?
Just a minute, I can.
It didn't say where pot 5 was.
It's all in.
This property right here,
This
see this right here? So this is,
is
this part of the
still
property
pod,
is in.
pod 4
pod
comes
4,
down to here.
and then
This is
part's
still
in
pod 4.
3.
So this is not part of the Clover School District property. This is somebody else. So these two pieces here will connect, this pod here must connect
So-
over to this.
There has to be that.
So that is not the school district.
That's not their property,
That's
that's correct.
Something like that, not exactly.
What's the focus?
You get the, you get my
I
point?
get the point, it's not clear though.
But that connection is really not part of our discussion this evening.
Are there additional questions? If there are no additional questions, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. Let's see, moving on to the tracking sheet. Alrighty. Does anyone have any questions or concerns? No? Then would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
Second?
All those in favor?
3 seconds.
Pick it yours. Pick.
Anyone opposed? Have a good night. Drive safely.